when we brought Darth Maul back, we kind of set up this inevitable confrontation.
We meet again, Kenobi. Welcome to my world.
And in the fourth part of this arc with Darth Maul, a lot of threads were coming together that demanded that we end the arc for several characters.
Okay, welcome to a long time ago. My name's Martyn, and with me is my cousin Adam. How you doing, Adam?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, you?
Good. Yeah, really good, really good. So I'm excited to talk about this episode.
Yep.
This will be our, I believe it's part 5, is it now? We're on our top 11 favorite Clone Wars episodes.
This is your number 5, but this is the second part to the previous one we talked about, right?
It is, yeah.
So I'm going to allow you to call that, one-parter.
Oh, really?
This is going to be your top 10.
I see what you're doing now. I see what you're doing. Yeah, that's true, I suppose. But then there might be some more like that in the future. So it might turn out to be top 8.
Dear.
But let's not get into that. Just a reminder or a recap. Basically, this is part 5 of my top 11 favorite episodes. I've put our top 11, but really it's mine.
Yeah.
Part 4 was, as Adam has just said, the previous episode to this. This is part 3 of a 3-part arc, and it's called The Lawless, which is season 5, episode 16. I've obviously seen this episode numerous times. I know Adam's seen it once or twice.
I've seen it twice now, yeah.
Yep.
But
so before,
like I said before, it was the previous episode. This is actually one of the ones that I remembered quite well.
Oh yeah.
So it must be a good one because I remember this story arc really well.
It's got some great and it's got some memorable moments in it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think overall? What were your impressions?
Yeah, it is great. You see so much really. You see emotion from Obi-Wan with, like, I don't know, his what would you call it? It's not like a fear of falling in love, but do you know what I mean? He's because he's Jedi and he's not supposed to be in love, whatnot. But you can clearly see he's got some sort of wish for that.
Well, yeah,
at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I will go more into that in notes, but I think essentially he was on a mission with Qui-Gon when he was a young Padawan, and his mission was to protect a young Duchess Satine, and they both spent so much time together that Obi-Wan had feelings for her, and as he said in this episode, if she'd had asked him, he would have left the Jedi Order to be with her. So there is obviously love there, but yeah, I mean, that moment. I mean, we might as well just jump straight into it. That moment was pretty devastating, wasn't it? And quite hardcore.
But it was almost pretty perfect as well, wasn't it? Because it's just it was Maul's way of torturing him. Which is exactly what he wanted.
I think Maul's aim is to basically do the one thing that Obi-Wan could never, stand, is get him to show dark side tendencies and join the dark side by wanting to actually seek revenge and kill Darth Maul for killing Duchess Satine, and therefore,
and Qui-Gon.
And Qui-Gon, yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it is a great episode. Yeah, I mean, do you want me to just start firing through some bullet points before I get to my main takeaway? I thought it was very, very interesting at the beginning, where Duchess Satine sent her distress signal to the Jedi in order to get Obi-Wan's attention. And you see an example of how much bureaucracy that the Jedi are mired in because of the Senate needing to approve them going to help the Duchess on Mandalore.
Yeah.
As we've heard so many times before, a Jedi's main priority should be to protect the innocent, no matter who or where they are. But because of their dogmatic ways now, and they're forgetting their past or their ways in the past, they now have to seek authorization from the Senate in order to actually do anything. So they're kind of an offshoot or a military offshoot of the Senate now, which is obviously possibly another thing that Darth Sidious has sort of weaved into the Jedi through the Senate in order to, make the Force leave them, if you like. I'm not really explaining myself well there, but I think
I get what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, I think in episode 2, Yoda says, the Jedi have lost their ability to use the Force, and I think part of that is the same as as this. They're obviously so mired in such political games and their dogmatic ways that they're not the Jedi of old, therefore they can't use the Force like they used to. To see these things happening, because in the old days, I would have thought the Jedi would have seen, much like Darth Sidious does later in the episode, what's actually happening on Mandalore through the Force. So yeah, so I thought that was great. It was the first meeting of in any show of the sisters Satine and Bo-Katan, which was quite. I must admit, I did forget that they were sisters when we watched the last episode. But obviously, now after watching the Mandalorian rewatch I did a couple of weeks ago, obviously it's like, oh, how did I forget that? Of course, that's why she thinks she should be, leading Mandalore, in the Mandalorian. So that was
it's
cool.
Interesting how the different paths that they took. One went on to become a Duchess, and one went on to become Death Watch.
Yeah. You do wonder whether you actually will get any backstory about that, don't you? Because I bet it's quite an interesting story. Because talk about divergent paths. I mean, wow. Some little things I noticed. In the Mandalorian season 3, they have the Mandalorian drop ships where you see the base of the ship open and the Mandalorians just drop out. Well, they had those in this episode at the end with the big battle. So that was kind of a cool callback from the Mandalorian. I thought. Anakin's ship that Obi-Wan used to get to Mandalore. I can't remember the name. It's so annoying. I cannot off the top of my head remember the name of that ship. The Twilight, I think, possibly. Right. That falling apart as Obi-Wan landing it and him trying to explain himself to the guard as it's falling apart, I thought was quite amusing, with a little callback scene to A New Hope where he invites him up the ramp to get something and then he knocks him out. That was good.
I have to say I don't know why, but I quite enjoyed seeing Obi-Wan in the Death Watch outfit. In the armor. I don't know why. It was just
it just looks cool.
Yeah,
well, it's a Mandalorian with a lightsaber. I mean, what's not to love?
That's very true.
Yeah, and the outfit he wore when he was coming down the ship when he landed on Mandalore before he stole the Mandalorian armor was the same armor he used in an episode where he was undercover as a bounty hunter called Harko Radine or something like that. Okay. And that was, again, that was cool that they'd use that as, so observant Clone Wars fans, who picked that up. I thought that was quite cool. This episode is quite obviously the culmination of Darth Maul's plan to capture Obi-Wan and make him suffer the way he did to him. Essentially getting revenge. So, obviously that.
For Satine Kryze, there never really was any other possibility than her eventual death. The introduction of the character, which began with Henry Gilroy wanting to give Obi-Wan Kenobi a love interest, presented a problem. We couldn't really have this character last.
Your noble flaw is a weakness shared by you and your Duchess. You should have chosen the dark side, Master Jedi.
It's happening all because of Obi-Wan. Because she is personal to him, which Maul knows, and Maul's exploiting that. So in that way, we really force and test not so much a romantic notion, but the bigger idea of this is all happening because of me. Because I failed to prevent Maul from resurrecting. I failed to capture him in the attempts I had before. And does he take that on? Does he take that guilt on?
I never planned on killing you, but I will make you share my pain, Kenobi.
We wanted to put him in that incredibly vulnerable and incredibly frustrating spot to show the audience how he has to learn to let go of everything that he holds dear. And in that moment, at that critical moment, he cannot seize on his anger and his hatred for Maul, though that's probably there deep within. he can't seize on it, or Maul will win, and he knows that.
Remember, my dear Obi-Wan, I've loved you always. I always will.
I think we learned a lot about Obi-Wan and what it means to be a true Jedi, which is what I really see Obi-Wan as.
That huge moment of loss as well enriches Obi-Wan's character so much if you've seen the Clone Wars. So say now you're watching the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series that we had last year, and you've seen how disheartened at the beginning he is, and how, you know, he's just given up with the Force, and he's just become a hermit who just goes about his business, just staying out of the way. Well, of course, the show says the reason for that is Anakin and his loss of Anakin. But by adding this in now, you can see it's a culmination of many events that's caused Obi-Wan to be like that.
It's happened over a long period of time, hasn't it?
Yeah. Basically, in the space of the Clone Wars, he's basically lost everything that he loved, and he's, you know, had to go off and become this shadow of a man that he was. And I think while it's probably not intentional with the Obi-Wan series, it fits perfectly anyway for a reason for him to be like that. So I thought that was great. Right. When I don't know if you remember this bit, but when Obi-Wan opens the blast door and he's just standing there with his lightsaber to his side, and there's just this battle raging around him, and he's just staring at it all. Right, and I'm going to say this. I don't think I'll change my mind. This is the greatest couple of frames of Star Wars: The Clone Wars you'll ever see, in my opinion. It's just absolutely cinematically epic. Absolutely
that's
brilliant.
Big words.
Yeah. I mean, you know, for those who are watching this on YouTube, as I'm talking, you'll be seeing this scene, I should imagine, because it's just beautiful and it looks absolutely amazing, and it would fit into any live action television show or movie. This scene, I thought it was fantastic. But that's all my bullet points. Before we go on for 2 hours, I'm going to have to do what I do every episode and talk about the one thing that makes me love this episode the most. And I've kind of put a bullet point under it called the main event.
Fair enough.
So we start this sort of these events with this beautiful shot of Coruscant, showing the Senate, and you're in Chancellor Palpatine's office, and the camera pans around his face, and he's looking out of his window, but he's got his eyes closed, and he's seeing through the Force what's happening on Mandalore and how powerful Darth Maul has become.
I didn't really pick that up.
Really?
No, I was thinking, how has he found out about this course of events? But yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, he's absolutely sensing it through the Force, definitely. And he's made the decision he has to do something about it. And he calls for his shuttle. So we then see his shuttle arriving, and he's casually taking out the Death Watch troops as he's walking off the shuttle.
In my notes, I've put Sidious casually showing how powerful he is.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just that, wasn't it? Just walked off. Yep, I'm just gonna.
He is the baddest. He is the baddest man in the galaxy. I'm telling you, absolutely brilliant. And then the next moment, Maul is sitting on the Mandalorian throne, and he senses his old master approaching, and then he walks towards him and bows and kneels towards him, you know, in reverence to him. And I kind of don't know how to take this scene. Does he genuinely want to go back to being his apprentice, or is it a Sith ruse to sort of lull him into a false sense of security to try and kill him and become the master himself?
If it is a ruse, Sidious is going to see straight through it, isn't it?
Well, I mean, again, you beat me to it.
I mean,
I mean, Maul, even with 3 other Sith there, I don't think probably would have stood a chance. But that leads to quite possibly one of the greatest fights in the Clone Wars, lightsaber duels in the Clone Wars. You know,
I also put that in my notes.
Yeah, it is absolutely amazing. Now there's a little
battle. I just want to sort of say, you know, well, one, how often do you see Palpatine with lightsabers? It's not a lot, is it? I mean, is there even any other episodes in the Clone Wars?
No. Yes, there's other episodes where you see him fight with 2.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And I
Yeah, 'cause I
believe
couldn't
this
remember those ones, but
they're later on, I think, because I know
there's
that
that. So this is
I
the first time.
yeah, absolutely. I know this is the first time
Hmm.
because this is the first time in the Clone Wars, and it's the end of season 5 that you've actually seen him in the flesh. You've only seen him as a hologram in before this.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, but there's a story behind the double lightsabers because when they were making the episode, Dave Filoni thought to himself, well, when in Revenge of the Sith, when he's fighting Mace Windu kicks the lightsaber out the window. Um, and then later on in the film, he's fighting Yoda and he's got another lightsaber.
Hmm.
So they use the logic of that to think, well, that means he must have had two lightsabers, which is why
Right.
they gave him two lightsabers in this episode, which, again, not going to say no, thank you very much. It's absolutely brilliant.
Not
As a,
just
as a,
that, the music that's playing at this point as
Mm,
well for this battle was like just classic,
mm.
classic Star Wars. I couldn't think if it was the exact movie that they used in the films,
I don't
but
think
it's
so. I
not
think,
far off, is it? It's a very similar score.
yeah, it definitely gives you a cinematic feel.
Mm.
I don't recognize it particularly because Kevin Kiner, who did the music for the Clone Wars, didn't really ever borrow much from the
Right.
movies.
Although we
But
do hear the Imperial March in this.
yes, we do.
That
Yeah,
plays in this episode, yeah.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
When it's sort of at the Senate building, he calls for a shuttle. I think it was, wasn't it?
Mm.
Yeah,
Or slightly after that. I can't
yeah.
remember, but yeah.
Yeah. Just a couple of things about the fight. I love the moment where Savage Opress sort of goes to stab down with his double lightsaber, but he's only got one of them ignited and he misses. And Sidious goes to swing both of them to take him out, and he quickly ignites the second
Mm.
half of the double lightsaber, and it blocks him.
Yeah. It's
I
very
love
clever.
that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. That's something I really miss about any new Star Wars that we've had since the prequels and the Clone Wars is that the lightsaber styles and fights just don't seem to be quite as bombastic
Mm.
or I don't know um artistic. That's not the right word.
Yeah.
Balletic.
Yeah.
They're very they're very they just work, don't they? They're very
Yeah.
well orchestrated. So I love that. Sidious.
You could almost argue, because we've said about the lightsaber battles in the Clone Wars before, you could almost argue that they do it better.
What in the Clone Wars
Yeah.
compared to
Compared to the live action.
well, not the prequels, but definitely the sequels and any TV shows we've had so far. I mean, the Obi-Wan fight in the Obi-Wan series, with the second one with Vader, was very good, and it was kind of I could see why they were going for a mix of old and new, so it's kind of fit the original and the prequel trilogy. So that was the reason they chose that style. But anything in the sequel trilogy, it's just I don't know that I didn't flow properly for me, the lightsaber fights in those
Fair enough.
films.
We're not
But
here to
anyway,
talk about
no, it always happens though, doesn't it?
it. Does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Now there was a great moment. I don't know if you spotted it, but do you remember in the Obi-Wan series? I'm talking about it again, where Reaver goes to attack Vader, and instead of like fighting there with his lightsaber, he just moves aside to side to sort of dodge the lightsaber. Well,
Probably one of my favorite
Sidious,
scenes.
yeah, Sidious does exactly the same thing in this episode with Savage Opress, where he just doesn't bother using his lightsabers and he's just sort of moving side to side as Savage is absolutely, trying to hack him down. So at least we know where Darth Vader learned that from. So that was a cool little moment. Maul and Sidious, when they finally went mono a mono after he kills Savage Opress, then it's two single lightsabers against two single lightsabers. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a mural in the background where they're fighting, and it's a huge Mandalorian mural of depicting the war between the Jedi and the Mandalorians that happened thousands of years ago. That's a cool little thing I think they added. I really enjoyed that.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, no, that was a little sort of detail they added in. And I think no matter how powerful and skilled Maul is, he never really stood a chance against Sidious. And I'm just really upset that the Clone Wars got cancelled, because you could quite clearly see that Sidious was setting something up for him, which was never made.
I was going to ask about that, the end to that.
Mm.
I mean, it was so sinister that I can't remember the exact words he used, but he said, "I've got a plan for you" or something.
Yeah. And if you're interested, you can find out what that is because there's
Right.
a comic book series called The Son of Dathomir.
And it's
Much like
canon.
and it's canon, yeah, and
Mm.
it's much like the book I was talking about Sarge Ventress that they wrote about a
Mm.
Clone Wars arc
Yeah.
that they never made. Again, this comic book was about the arc where Darth Maul's been captured, and they made it into a comic book. So if you think about it, in season 7, when we see Darth Maul again and he's free and he's out controlling the Death Watch again, it's kind of like, whoa, hang a minute, Darth Sidious captured him. What happened to him? Well, unless you've read this comic book, you won't know.
Yeah.
And I'm ashamed to say I haven't read it. I know the beats, but I haven't read it, so I can't tell you what happens. But I'm definitely gonna, after watching this episode again, I'm gonna find it and give it a look. I think
Seek it
because
out, definitely.
yeah. So all in all, I just wanted to mention one thing. This was Ian Abercrombie, who does the voice of Darth Sidious's last episode before he died. So you might have noticed at the end, Darth Sidious's voice changed to what's his name? Someone Curry.
Not Tim.
Tim Curry, yeah, Tim
Really?
Curry.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The last couple of lines, I have plans for you. That's Tim Curry.
All right.
And then unfortunately, after this episode, Tim Curry had a stroke, so he was unable to carry on doing the voice for Sidious. So I just wanted to mention that because I really love Ian Abercrombie's Sidious Palpatine character that he does in this.
I always thought they used Ian McDermott for it.
No, never.
He did voice it after that, did he?
I don't think he's ever voiced anything in the Clone Wars.
But he was in
Bad
Tales
Batch,
of the Jedi, right?
Yeah, Tales of the Jedi and Bad Batch. But no, he never appeared in and Rebels. Right. He did Rebels, but no, he never did that. So yeah,
I did not know that.
No.
Well,
so yeah,
it was
love the episode.
Sinister end.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
but absolutely love the episode. Definitely worthy of being in anyone's top 11. But loved it.
Brilliant, excellent stuff. Right, that's it. That's all we've got time for this week. If you liked it, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll catch you in the next one. See you later.
Bye.